The following program contains material of an adult nature. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the S.I.R.E.N. Strong Island Radio and Entertainment Network.
This is the S.I.R.E.N. Who do we have on the air?
How you doing? It's Mike Lepond.
Mike,
Hi,
what's
Mike.
happening? How's everything going, man?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
Very, very good. We were mixing up a little tonight. We were doing a little new metal from back in the 2000s, doing a little progressive. We threw on a little something from Symphony X before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sounds like a good night.
Yeah. We like to keep it eclectic over here. So for those of you listening in here on the S.I.R.E.N., on the phone with us right now is, as I said, I have interviewed many bands and asked them all the same thing as to where their influences came from. Well, this guy is the influence. This is one of the best bass players in the business, Mr. Mike Lepond from Symphony X and Mike Lepond's Silent Assassins. Thank you so much for calling in, man. I really appreciate it. We're looking forward to doing the interview with you, man.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to having a good conversation. We got a lot of things to talk about, so I'm up for anything.
Well, why don't you tell me first what we got coming up for you? Because you're the man of many bands and talents, and it seems like you're all over the map these days.
Yeah, I'm always up to something, but so right now, as far as Symphony X goes, the next thing we have planned is in February and March, we're going to tour Europe for 5 weeks.
Sweet.
So, yeah, so that should be really, really good, and should be a really, really great tour. Every time we go over there, you know, I mean, the people over there love our stuff, and, you know, it's great to play for them. You get to play for so many different people, so many different cultures, and it's always a blast. And as far as the Silent Assassins, I began working on a new CD.
Okay.
And I started right now, still kind of working out the drums and that kind of stuff. So it's still in the infancy stages. So hopefully, maybe a year from now, I could say, hey, all right, got a release date.
Nice. I got to tell you that listening to that CD, it's got such a massive sound, and it's just that big epic metal. It nods back to Manowar and, you know, so many bands from the past, but it just, you don't hear things like that coming out anymore, and it's just, you have kind of like that Celtic feel going on with some of the stuff. It's a phenomenal album.
Thanks so much. Yeah, you know, I mean, the album kind of spans all the influences I've ever had. You know, I mean, a lot of the riffs, you know, are based in the old school metal style. You know, because a lot of the metal bands today, this stuff is, I mean, it might be fast and that kind of thing, but it's not really heavy. So
Right.
The old school really had that attitude.
Sure.
And but what I put in from a lot of the newer influences are, you know, what you had just mentioned, like the Celtic kind of influences
Right.
and orchestration and that kind of thing. And so, you know, I kind of put it all together, and it came out really cool.
Yeah, no, and no, you said you were going to Europe, and I'm going to ask you the painful question because I already know the answer, I think. How do you find the reception for a band either like Symphony X or like Silent Assassins in Europe as compared to here in the States?
Well, you know, the Europeans, as far as their musical taste, they kind of differ from the Americans. It seems like here in the USA, you know, the people, they kind of jump on the trends, you know, like, so the 80s here were the glory days of heavy metal.
Sure.
And then, you know, in the 90s, grunge came in and people start going for that. And then alternative was coming in, they start going for that. In Europe, they remain loyal to what they like. So I could maybe name a band that you'll remember from back in the 80s, and you're like, well, whatever happened to them? Did they
Right.
disappear? And the answer is no, they maybe disappeared from here, but in Europe, the fans still appreciate them, and they still do concerts, and they still, they still do really well. So in Europe, I mean, they're just so loyal, and it's just amazing, and so anytime we go over there, it's just, it's an amazing experience. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's actually one of my favorite bands coming up was Riot, and they recently did a show over here at Revolution Club called Revolution in Amityville. But
Sure.
I talked to Mike Flint's, and I missed out on their whole Inishmore album tour because it never even came to the U.S. And that, for me, coming through the 90s, was one of my favorites. And he said, we just stayed in Europe and did the thing over there because we were playing to 100,000 people. And it's unfortunately,
Yeah.
you're not going to get that over here.
That's a classic example. Riot, an amazing band,
Absolutely.
that, they couldn't really get arrested in the States. and but you go to Europe and they get the attention they deserve.
Absolutely.
And and by the way, Revolution Live, that's a cool place. I've been there a few times. I think I played there a few times.
Yeah, Revolution's a great club. They've brought quite a few big acts into the smaller room and made it real personal. I love the fact that we have had a chance to see so many bands up and close like that.
Absolutely.
Now, you just recently just played a show here, I believe, in October. You played Terminal 5?
Yeah, on the Symphony X tour, we did a tour of America that spanned from mid-September to mid-October, co-headlining with Overkill. And the last show of the tour was in Manhattan at Terminal 5. It was easily the biggest show of the tour. About 1,300 people were there, and it was a great time. I mean, anytime, we played in New York, that's like our home crowd, and it's also Overkill's home crowd.
Sure.
So, it was awesome. The whole tour was awesome. Overkill, the guys in Overkill, really nice guys, good friends, and it really worked out. And their fans were enjoying our music too, so it was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, I tell you what amazes me about, now I took a little nerd with you. You play in so many different time signatures, and the solos between the bass and the guitar and the keyboards, the chase, 7/8 time and stuff. But amazingly enough, you manage to keep it in a groove, even though it sounds like a mathematical equation on paper. You managed to keep that groove feeling. How was that? How did you approach that? I mean, were you always a very technical player, or was this something that you kind of had to wrap your head around and get used to playing in those different time signatures and jumping back and forth?
Oh, I had to totally get used to it. Before I joined Symphony X, I was just like a hard rock, heavy metal bass player, So, and I always just played in 4/4, and then when I was going to audition for Symphony X, I mean, all their odd time signatures and just their different kinds of scales they were using, it were just like a lot of bands were just not doing. So the only band that I had heard really that had the odd time signatures was Rush. So I just, started listening to Rush a little bit more, and I just had to practice it and just kind of try to learn how to feel an odd time signature. And then once I was able to get a handle on that, then you had to, during a song, as the bass player, you had to be like, well, the guitar is playing a heavy riff, the keyboard is playing like a counter melody to the guitar. So it's like, what does the bass player do? So if I was doing my own thing, it would kind of be like too chaotic and not uniform. So the best thing to do that I learned playing this kind of music is either follow the drums only or follow the guitar only, and that kind of makes it cohesive.
Yeah, I mean, here I've heard in some of the songs too, where you guys actually opposing runs on in a harmonic scales, and it just honestly it comes out like beautiful chaos. It really does. It's just this mess of notes that all just manage to gel together perfectly. It's an incredible thing, and it's, for me, I'm a hack guitar player. I'm a rhythm guitar. As a matter of fact, most of my friends have quoted me as the most over bass driven guitar player ever. I play rhythms that shake things off of shelves. I really don't care for mids. You just scoop out the mids, drive the bass in the highs, and let me chunk away until something crashes. So I've always been a big fan of the big heavy bottom sound. So when the 2000s came in with nu metal, and all these guys started playing 5-string basses and everything, for me, that was the sound that I fell in love with. But, bands like Dream Theater, who really, I feel like they pretty much commercialized the whole progressive metal sound for a whole new generation. Forget about the classic metal and classic rock bands and hard rock bands and metal bands that were doing it already. They kind of brought it front and center for a whole new generation. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of just exploded in the 90s at some point, and they became a huge band.
Seriously?
And and they really brought the progressive kind of feel to the forefront. And people say that we're kind of like the second in line. It's Dream Theater and then us. But we've toured with Dream Theater a couple times, and Dream Theater really draws a great crowd. So, when we open for them, we get a lot of exposure. So it's always a cool thing to play with those guys.
I think though the stark difference between you guys and Dream Theater is you go to see a live Dream Theater show, and I'm not knocking the band at all. I love them. I think they're great. But I think the problem that you get with a Dream Theater band is that if you're not a musician and you're not just honed in on everything you're watching and blown away by what you're experiencing because you have a tuned ear, when the singer walks off the stage for 15 minutes because there's going to be a guitar duel with the keyboard and you're going to need to slow down the tape later to catch everything, it could become a little boring to people who don't understand music.
Right.
And I feel like listening to some of the old Symphony X stuff, and especially with the Silent Assassins, you've managed to bring that progressive feel, and you capture all that, but yet you still keep the audience locked in and your listener locked in because it's still interactive. You're not just droning on for 800 measures with a a 7/8 time signature that's going to switch 19 times. So I honestly think that you guys do a real good job at keeping the listener engaged.
Yeah, thank you for that. What we always do when we're writing is, the song is always the most important thing.
Right.
So we might, we might have a song and the middle part has all this crazy stuff in it, but, we don't look at it like, we just want to throw the whole kitchen sink at you. We want to make sure everything really has its place, and we're just not playing to show off,
Right.
So we always kind of focus on the song. Does it fit the song? Does everything flow right? So that's that's like our main thing.
Sure.
And even with the Silent Assassins, I took that same approach. It didn't really matter to me how long or short a song was, as long as everything fit together, and there were no boring spots or
right.
Spots that were kind of like filler. So
yeah. Now, if I did my homework correctly, I believe you had said that one of your early influences was Gene Simmons.
Yeah, when I was 13, I went with my father and my brother to see Kiss at Madison Square Garden, and when you're a 13-year-old, you got to think back of your mindset, and you see a show like this with all these crazy things going on, and I was just blown away by the whole show and by Gene Simmons, and I just wanted to be like him when I was younger. So my father, God rest his soul, he bought me a bass right away, and the first thing I did was I attempted to learn every Kiss song that was out at the time.
Right. Which
actually was a really good training ground, because even though Gene these days really don't play that much. But back in the 70s, he had a lot of really cool bass lines, and I learned a lot from him.
Right.
And then from there, I started discovering, Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and all these other great bass players.
Sure.
So, but that was definitely the springboard.
Well, I feel like with Gene, he wasn't the most technical player, but
right.
Gene was Captain Hook. I mean, his bass lines, you tell me one person who's a music fan who couldn't hum on key the whole bass line for Detroit Rock City. It's
Exactly, dude. He had a lot of really tasty bass lines in all the songs, and really blues based kind of walks, and you know what? For someone who was just learning, it was like a really good way to learn.
Sure.
And then from there, you can get to the more technical stuff, like what Steve Harris was doing, and Geddy Lee and that kind of thing.
But like for players like that, like I picked up a guitar because of George Lynch. I heard him play the first time. I mean, my first actual influence into rock music, believe it or not, was the Eddie Van Halen solo and Michael Jackson's "Beat It."
Wow.
I was in grade school when that song came out, and I heard this guitar solo come ripping in, and I immediately was like, "What is that? That's not like any dance song I ever heard." Immediately had to go to the record store and find out who was playing on it, because back then we didn't have any Google. And I was sucked in right there. I was like, whatever that guitar sound is, I want to hear that all the time. That's amazing. And unfortunately, Eddie Van Halen and George Lynch were the reasons I picked up a guitar. They were coincidentally probably the same reason I put down the guitar when I realized that my fingers don't operate quite like theirs. So, like most guitar players that do a hack rhythm job, I just turned the bass way up and the distortion way up and relied on my sound. But, it all works in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, as long as you're playing, it doesn't even matter.
Oh,
as long as you're jamming somehow.
Absolutely. So now, with all the touring that you've done over the years, there's got to be at least one good road prank story or a good funny story from the road that you got saved up somewhere.
That's a good question. It's weird. Not a lot of. The only time really pranks went on were like say the last show, like if we were like playing with another band and they'd put a prank on us, but it was never really anything that was even like worth talking about, because it was kind of like stupid really. And so yeah, I actually don't really have any good funny prank stories.
All right.
Yet.
Well, you got the whole Europe tour coming up, so that could yield some. And,
hopefully I can get one from there.
What would you say that defining moment was for you? Like, you're a kid, your dad got you your bass, you saw Gene Simmons. What was that defining moment when you said, something, I want to make music my life?
Yeah, I think it was really right after that concert, that like put the light bulb on, and that really started me like, okay, I want to play. And then I went for lessons for like a year, and then I just stopped with the lessons, and then I just basically learned from just trying to play along with songs from my favorite bands, and that's kind of how I learned. I learned all these bass players' styles, and then I just kind of put them all together, and then all of a sudden my style kind of came out.
Well, I know as I was doing my research and everything, and watching, some of your videos of you playing, I see a lot of people quoting you as some of the influences for how they play. So you've definitely had an impact on the scene for sure. What are some of the bands out there now that's exciting you? Like somebody maybe that you would like to play with, or someone that you think is deserving of some attention?
There's some really good bands out there. Really great band. There's a couple of really great bands that come to mind. One band they're out of Tunisia, and they're called Miraz.
Okay.
And they play a style of metal. They mix heavy metal with like the traditional music of their country.
Okay.
So it's this real Middle Eastern kind of feel, but heavy, and they do it really, really well. Great band. Another band, let's see, who else comes to mind? I listened to a lot of. I've been listening to a lot of the folk metal bands that are coming out of Europe these days, and the Viking metal bands. I like a lot of them too, and that actually had a big influence on me too, because I like the idea of playing metal and having more stuff than just the guitar. Maybe some folk instruments, playing some heavy riffs with you, and it's kind of cool. And there's another band out of Israel called Orphaned Land, and they kind of do the same thing Mirath does. They kind of take the traditional music of their country and they put metal to it, and it's just really interesting. It's interesting how metal has evolved, because when it started out in the 80s, it was only guitar and bass, drums and singer. And, if you played keyboards back then, you were just not cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the 80s kind of killed that for everybody.
I think Iron Maiden did that for everybody. You can't play keyboards in heavy metal.
It's like keyboards. Now it's like I couldn't think of even writing without a keyboard, because keyboards, as I got older, I realized how much keyboards could really make a song come to life and make it so epic and layer it.
Yeah, there's nothing like especially we spoke about Manowar and bands like that. When you get that giant sound, like even the opening of Silent Assassin album, it's such a huge sound, and it gives you like almost that goosebump chill. Like it's like a soundtrack almost. You're getting ready for the action of the movie, and it just paints a landscape that's amazing.
Yeah, and with the Silent Assassins record. Another thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give the younger generation like a taste of how I felt when I first listened to Judas Priest, or I first listened to Maiden or Metallica. That when you first put it on, that punch in the face you get. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I just think a lot of the bands, you don't get that now, because a lot of the music is just kind of, I guess for a lack of a better word, a lot of it's kind of happy.
Sure.
Even and it doesn't give you that kick. So, and I wanted to really let the younger generation know, like, how I felt like, when I first heard Motorhead, So, like, the first song on the Silent Assassins record is kind of like a Motorhead kind of style song.
Yeah, just grab you and hit you.
So, so hopefully, some people got that impression.
Absolutely. Now, is there going to be any touring going on for this current Silent Assassin CD, or have you done the touring for that already? Is that done with?
Well, right now, I'm grooming a live band right now. I got some guys together, and we haven't practiced yet, but everybody's kind of been learning the song. So I think, even though Symphony X is going to have a big touring schedule next year, I think in between that, I'm going to try to schedule, maybe a couple high-profile gigs for the Silent Assassins. Maybe some shows where there'll be a lot of press, like a festival or a cruise, or something cool.
Well, I know we're actually doing the Shiprock cruise this year. And,
nice.
We're trying to get on. We're trying to get ourselves into all the Rock on the Range and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. The only cruise that I ever played was the 70,000 Tons of Metal.
Okay, yeah.
And that's I did that in 2013 and 2014, and that was just a blast. I mean, it's like 4 days, you're just on the water, and it's just all metal bands all day, from the morning to the night. It's just like, it was like the best experience.
I tell you, this summer I managed to catch quite a few of the festivals. We did, the food truck and rock carnival. We did the one down in Florida in Jacksonville, Welcome to Rockville. the Metal Allegiance in Philadelphia. But I tell you something, this has become like the replacement of Ozfest of back in the day, you know, which was great because it exposed a lot of people to a lot of bands they may never have seen. And it really, what an amazing festival season. There's just so many bands out there that are really making waves. And I have such an eclectic taste in music that, you know, whether it be, I was a child of the 80s, so I came up with all the hair bands, and then I got into the more heavy stuff and then the technical stuff and became a musician. And so for me, you know, I can go to a festival and be happy at any one of the stages. But it
definitely.
just, what an amazing way to just expose so many people to so many new bands. Now, did you guys played one of those, didn't you? Didn't you play the Food Truck Carnival? Was that?
No, we didn't. Because our tour with Overkill had already started, so we weren't around. But I really wanted to see that. I mean, that festival was literally maybe 15 minutes from my house. I was like,
Jesus.
Well, I got to be honest with you. The bands were amazing, but the setup was the worst I've ever seen. They undertook something that they were not prepared for. And I mean, I guess, you know, if you had a press pass or an artist pass, it was well worth it because you could just walk between the stages up front. But other than that, they had fences up, corrals everywhere.
They were pretty unorganized for the amount of people that showed up.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie, it was unfortunate because they had so many bands there that were noteworthy. I got Seven Dust blew us away.
Oh,
they were amazing. Just all these bands were just fantastic. But unfortunately, they took the other bands, like the 80s bands and stuff like that, and they stuck them underneath the small tent. And whoever was running the sound was in love with the 4K. And literally just sheared your head off with those highs, and it was a little unbearable. I'm not gonna, unfortunately, you put a bunch of 80s bands in there already who only know about 4-string basses and no mids and no bass.
Hey, come on, Mark Slaughter was playing, and when he hits that high note, and as loud as he had it was like head piercing.
I always say that if I could travel back in time musically, I'd drop a 5-string bass in the middle of the 80s. And hopefully get something nice out of it. The 80s bands just really didn't have that drive or punch. And that's why when bands like Disturbed and all that started coming out, I was like, oh, hey, look, there's Bottom End. And it's not dance music. I love it.
That would be interesting. Yeah, definitely, for sure. But, wow. So, but you know what? I mean, hopefully there'll be more and more festivals in the States, because, you go to Europe.
It's hot over there, right? It's all over the place.
They have festivals that are so huge. I mean, you're looking at 50,000, 100,000 people at these festivals.
Went over there to a
and,
festival,
every band you've ever heard of will play, And it's just the best time. So, but hopefully, all that'll kind of filter back to America, hopefully.
Yeah. Either that or I'm going to have to get my passport updated and start heading over to Europe for some of these because I tell you, I'm just an addict of music, and it doesn't really matter what the genre. As long as it's live and it rocks, I'm so into all these music festivals. I try to get to as many as possible. But
yeah, absolutely, dude.
Why don't we... well, give me something I can plug for you. Definitely want everybody that's listening to check out Silent Assassin CD. It's absolutely amazing. I'm going to play a couple of tracks off of that.
Cool, man. Thanks.
What else do we have of yours coming up that we can throw out to all the listeners?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the Mike Lepond Silent Assassin CD that you can get pretty much anywhere. Whatever, iTunes, Amazon, and if you go to the fan page on Facebook, there's some links there where you can buy physical copies too. Symphony X has a new album out called Underworld, and you can get that literally anywhere on Earth. It's not even an issue. So any of those, so I mean, those two things I got going on right now. So, and hopefully you could play a few tunes and people will dig it.
Absolutely. Now, of all the albums that you've been on and you've played on between Symphony X and Silent Assassins, everything like that, is there a track that maybe didn't get as much attention that you wish people would kind of get into? Like, really a piece of you was in it and you were like, I don't know why people didn't dig this one as much as some of the other ones.
Right. You know, on the latest Symphony X album,
Right.
there's a song called "In My Darkest Hour,"
Okay.
and it's really cool. Has a lot of bass in it. Has a lot of cool vocals in it. Definitely kind of reminds me of maybe like a Megadeth meets Judas Priest kind of thing.
Awesome.
So, and that's probably my favorite song on the record, but, you know, nobody seems to really talk about it, but I always thought it was my favorite. So, and on the Silent Assassins record, there's a song called The Outsider.
Okay.
And that's like probably my favorite riff that I ever wrote in my life. So
There's always that one that, you know, it'll just never leave you. I wrote one back in high school that I still can't put into a song. I haven't figured out. It's an acoustic picking piece. And eventually someday someone's going to hear me play it, like for the 9 millionth time. And they'd be like, "Oh, you know, I have a song that'd be perfect in." Somebody.
that's it. Yeah, there's always that part that you can't put anywhere. You don't know where it goes after the part's over.
This just I don't know what this thing is. It's kind of a Spanish sounding something or other. It's got like a bullfighter type feel, but I don't know. I've been playing it. I think I actually wrote it when I was half asleep one night, and it just stuck. Everybody hears, "Oh, that's so cool. Did you ever write a song to it? Do you want to help me, please? Just somebody, mercy." But
yeah, that's so good. What's next? I don't know.
I don't know where I'm going from here. But Mike, I want to take up too much more of your time. I want to thank you so much for calling in. Everybody, check out Symphony X's new one, Underworld, and check out for sure Mike Lepond's Silent Assassins. Mike, excellent, awesome interview, man. I want to thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, dude. And anytime, I'd love to come on again. No problem.
Absolutely, and definitely, if you come into the area, we definitely want to come down and check it out. You know, when either of the bands are going to be in, we'll definitely come down and cover the show, and maybe get a nice in-person interview.
Oh, that would be killer, man. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, so we're gonna lead out of this interview with "In My Darkest Hour" for Symphony X, and then we're gonna go right to a couple of tracks off of that Silent Assassin CD. Everybody, this is the Siren with Mike Lepond, bass legend. I'm gonna say it because he won't say it himself. He's way too humble, but I will say it because I've listened to it, and I'll tell you right now, I don't know anybody who could do this. So, right now, Symphony X, "In My Darkest Hour," the Siren. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, my friend.
I've been betrayed by the angel of death and the serpent who stole her last breath, feeding the flame. Though I pray for the best and prepare for the worst, just the same. Dominator, subjugator, locked in apocalypse skies, desecrator, devastator. Set my world ablaze. In my darkest hour, with thy kingdom's power, hear my song and hear my plea. Put the pieces back together. Nothing lasts forever. My darkest hour, let it be. Grant my request. Dark's a master of pain, incarnation of all that's profane. Without a prayer, under 6 black wings flutter, and 6 mouths of screaming despair. Born a liar, falsifier, trapped in the stale infernal maze. Crucifier, born a fire, set my world ablaze. In my darkest hour, with thy king
Symphony X in my darkest hour. And now we have coming up The Outsider from Mike Lepond's Silent Assassins here on the Siren. This is how heavy is done. Yeah, that was Mike Lepond, Silent Assassins. Great interview with Mike. That was awesome. I want to thank him so much for calling in.
Awesome.
We
that was badass.
yeah, man.
Really cool.